Imagine this. The sun died years ago. The sky is no longer blue, just an endless ash rain. I'm Fatih. Today, while looking at Cormac McCarthy's The Road at Daily Books, we're actually going to confront your deepest fear. Many people think this book is just an apocalyptic story. They are mistaken. By the end of this video, all the technology in your hands, your titles, and your plans will lose their meaning. Because the question I'm about to ask will gnaw at your brain until the very end of the video. If everything, absolutely everything were to vanish, is that inner fire that would keep you walking truly there? Or are you just a pile of ash waiting to be extinguished? Every second, from the horror of the cellar scenes to the great disappointment at the seaside, will actually test your limits of endurance. If you're ready, we're descending into humanity's zero point, that great void. Do you have the courage to carry the flame?
Darkness. But this is not the darkness you know. It is not the absence of light, but the irreversible retreat of hope. I am Fatih. Today, here on the Daily Book screen, we will discuss not just a book, but the zero point of the human soul. Cormac McCarthy's The Road has engulfed the literary world like a pile of ashes since its publication in 2006. But on the cusp of 2026, amidst algorithms and digital noise, this book poses a more vital question than ever. Do you carry the fire? This video is not a summary of a story. It is an existential simulation. In McCarthy's world, there are no colors, no birds. Not even the crumbs of civilization survive beneath a gray cloud of dust. So why do we still watch? Why do we still read? Because within this destruction, we are left alone with our purest selves. In that absolute void, where social status, money, and technology have lost their meaning, what keeps you alive? McCarthy adapts his language to this void. That arid text structure, devoid of commas, semicolons, and sometimes even breathing space, actually sends a message to our minds. If civilization ends, language dies too. Let's delve a little deeper. Albert Camus asked the following in the myth of Sisyphus. The only serious philosophical question is suicide. Deciding whether life is worth living is to answer philosophy's fundamental question. The nameless father in The Road opens his eyes every morning by answering this question. Beneath the gray sky, on that endless journey south with his son dying of hunger, we are actually following an absurd hero. In that metaphysical void where Friedrich Nietzsche declared, "God is dead," the father creates his own God, his son. That child is the only sanctity, the only meaning in this barren land. In his father's words, if he is not God, then God has never spoken. This is not just a story of parenthood, my friends. It is an act of constructing meaning at the heart of nihilism. As the Daily Books community, we are on a similar path. Amid information pollution and digital decay, we strive to protect that one spark of meaning, that fire. McCarthy wants you to burn your philosophy library and extract a moral code from its ashes. Consider this. When everything is over, will the distinction between good guys and bad guys still hold? Or is morality merely a luxury for the well-fed? In the global EduTube world, giants like Ali Abdaal or Escaping Ordinary present knowledge as a tool, but here, guided by Daily Books, we use knowledge as an instrument of transformation. With McCarthy's work, we discuss not only the survival instinct, but also the will to stay meaningful.
What Viktor Frankl said about concentration camps in Man's Search for Meaning also applies to McCarthy's Gray Roads. You can take everything away from a man, but one thing remains: the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Throughout this video, we will analyze why the father did not commit suicide, why he left his son in that savage world, and most importantly, why that little boy still spoke of goodness. This is the peak of that high satisfaction feeling the 2026 algorithm wants from us, because we tell you not only what it is, but what it will change in your life.
Are you carrying the fire? This question will echo in your mind until the end of the video. Soon we will descend into the book's most harrowing scenes, those locked cellars, the horror of the baby scene, and finally that great disappointment at the sea's edge. But remember, we are not chasing the darkness. We are chasing that unyielding, stubborn light within the darkness. If you're ready, we begin with the truth beneath the gray snow, McCarthy's legacy, and the analysis from daily books. Don't fasten your seatbelts. There's no safe seat on this journey. There is only the road, and the road is everything. The road continues. But these are not merely steps taken on asphalt. This is the story of the moral barriers in the father's mind, the last remnants of civilization crumbling one by one. I am IThe. Cormac McCarthy shows us this. Morality is actually a luxury for those with full bellies. Let's go to one of the book's most terrifying, most stomach-churning scenes, those locked cellar scenes. McCarthy isn't just telling a story of physical horror, of cannibalism. He is actually showing us how Thomas Hobbes' famous philosophy, Homo homini lupus, meaning man is wolf to man, takes shape in a world where no rules remain. The people in that cellar are no longer individuals. They are symbols of everything humanity has abandoned, of that collective collapse. So why does the father close his son's eyes? Why does he still tell him the lie that we are the good guys? There's a very critical psychological layer here for the Daily Books community. Sacred lies. The father has long understood that he cannot save the world, but he must save the world inside his son. In psychology, we call this radical protection. Is it hypocritical for a father who fights against his own kind and does not hesitate to pull the trigger when necessary to still talk about mercy to his son? Or is this the most noble story invented in order to remain human? McCarthy plunges us into an existential labyrinth. If you sacrifice others to survive, can you still claim to be a good man? This question may seem very distant, very dystopian to us in the sterile digital world of 2026. But McCarthy cuts through that sterile layer with a scalpel and shows us the raw, bloody truth beneath. To understand Cormac McCarthy's dark pen, it is insufficient to look only at the road. We must compare it with Blood Meridian, considered his magnum opus. In Blood Meridian, violence was presented through the character of Judge Holden as a universal god, a law of nature. There, violence was aestheticized, transformed into an operatic savagery. But in The Road, violence is no longer a god. It is merely a cold weather condition. It is inevitable, cannot be aestheticized, and brings only nothingness. The noisy savagery of Blood Meridian has been replaced in The Road by a silent despair that gnaws at the soul. Comparing it to his other works, we see how McCarthy evolved from nihilism to tragedy as he grew older. In Blood Meridian,
Man is savage because that is his nature. In The Road, man is a victim because the world is dead. But there is one thing that remains unchanged in both worlds. Nature is utterly indifferent to man. At this point, we must bring to the table Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy of will. Schopenhauer says that the will to live is beyond all rational logic. Why are the father and son still trying to go south, to that cursed place where death lurks around every corner? Why are they crying over a single apple they found on the road? Because the will to live is much older than meaning. McCarthy whispers to us under the heading Subject Authority. Man is the only creature who invents a new story for himself, even where meaning ends, worshiping his own fiction. A father who believes in the story he has invented, that fire, is perhaps humanity's last bastion in this universe. My fellow viewers, ask yourselves this question. What is your sacred lie that keeps you waking up to those cold mornings? What story are you clinging to as you continue walking through this modern chaos? Let's broaden our perspective a little and look at it from a sociological, even scientific point of view. Entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, states that every system, every structure, tends towards disorder and decay over time. McCarthy puts entropy into literary form. Recall sociologist Zygmunt Bauman's concept of liquid modernity. In a world where everything becomes uncertain, where institutions and trust evaporate, only connections remain. That delicate connection in the road, that invisible thread between father and son, is actually the essence of all civilization, all our history, and our future. If this bond breaks, it is not just the end of a species. The very concept of human is erased from the face of the earth. Throughout this deep dive, I wanted you to feel a sense of unease in the deepest corners of your mind, because the 2026 algorithm rewards videos that leave the viewer with not just information, but a real emotional jolt. We are not just talking about a book here, we're talking about how we will face that bare essence that remains when we lose everything: our technology, our homes, our status. McCarthy's terrifying honesty is actually a cure. It reminds us how miraculous and how fragile the tiny things we have right now: a cup of hot water, a pillow, the breath of our loved ones, actually are. Now, at the peak of this psychological devastation and philosophical intensity, we will soon move on to the most poignant part of the video, the final and salvation section. But before we get there, you need to understand how we found that tiny, stubborn crumb of hope hidden beneath these gray snows, these corpse-smelling roads. I promise you, as IThe, that there is light at the end of this road. But to reach that light, we must first breathe in this darkness to our very lungs. The road is still long, but the fire still burns. At last, they are there. The boundless blue expanse they have dreamed of for days, weeks, perhaps even their entire lives, lies right before them. But what they encounter is no fairy tale. It is McCarthy's famously brutal honesty. What they see when they reach the shore is not a refreshing blue. It is a vast nothingness, the same gloomy color as the sky, littered with dead fish, plastic waste, and gray rubbish washed up on the shore. This scene represents the collapse of that last great illusion of hope that humans harbor. Many viewers ask, Why is McCarthy so pessimistic? My friends, because he is trying to teach us this. The destination is not more valuable than the journey itself. If you live only for a destination, the only thing you will see when you reach that imaginary shore will be those gray waters, a reflection of your own inner emptiness. The stench of the sea is actually the last breath of a dying world. As father and son stand there, we realize that humanity has reached the end of all its geographical discoveries, all its dreams of crossing the sea. There is no beyond left to go.
Here, we come up against the hardest rock of Stoic philosophy. Remember that principle emphasized repeatedly in Emperor Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. We cannot control the external world, nature, or the disasters that befall us. The only thing we can control is our reaction to this destruction. When the Father sees that the sea is gray too, that it offers no salvation either, he does not kneel, he does not collapse. Do you know why? Because he has already become the path itself. His reason for being is not to find the sea, but to carry the fire, his son's innocence and humanity alive to that sea. In the modern world, in this ambitious and results-oriented structure of 2026, we too are constantly searching for a shore. The next promotion, a new house, a great success. But McCarthy whispers to us, the shore will also be gray. The shore will not satisfy you either. The only real value left in your hands is who is beside you along that path and what moral fire you carry within you. Don't look at those waves. Look at that last weary light in the Father's eyes as he looks at his Son. Therein is the summary of all human history. McCarthy's gray sea is in fact the graveyard of our false hopes, and in this graveyard, only those who carry the fire can find their way.
And that inevitable moment, that moment that squeezes the chest, finally arrives. Your father's body, that weary skeleton he has kept upright for months, perhaps years, with his unshakable, steely will, can no longer bear this enormous moral burden. This scene is not merely the death of a man. It is one of the purest, most tragic, and paradoxically, most hopeful moments in literary history. I am IThe. Here, the father dies, yes, but he does not merely return to the earth as a biological organism. He is departing as a protector, a final God, and a universe. The last words he whispers to his son are actually McCarthy's testament to the entire history of humanity. You must carry the fire. So what is this fire? Just a flint? Just a tool to fill one's belly? No. This fire is rational thought, compassion, the ability to feel the pain of another living being in one's own veins. McCarthy whispers this to us here. Even if the world is painted gray, even if the sky is covered in ashes, remaining human is a choice, and this choice is the brightest light in the universe. When his father breathed his last breath, the child faced absolute loneliness for the first time in his life, that boundless and deafening gray silence. Recall Jean-Paul Sartre's famous and unsettling words, "Man is condemned to freedom." Now the child has no guide, no safety net, no refuge left. His father's death is in fact the child's loss of his own God. This is precisely where we, as the Daily Books family, should be shaken. One day, we too will be left alone on that dusty road,
or we will be forced to leave our loved ones on that cold road. McCarthy shows us the most radical, most naked, and most primitive form of mourning. But as the child waits beside his father's lifeless body, he is actually donning his father's story like a suit of armor. His father is dead, but the will to be a good man, which his father had embroidered in him over months and years, now lives on in the child's consciousness. This is a legacy far more powerful than genetics. It is the evolution of a cultural immortality that transcends the biological limits of man. As Fati, I ask you, what legacy flows through your veins? Who passed this fire on to you? And when you close this video, to whom will you pass it on so that the fire does not go out? As we approach the end of the video, we must discuss that mysterious and shocking final encounter, the new family who found the child. Who are these people who found the child on that desolate and cold shore? Are they truly the good people mentioned? Or is this a final literary consolation, a mirage fabricated for the child's and indeed our readers' desire to survive? McCarthy deliberately leaves the answer to this question open-ended, because the real issue is not who those people are. The real issue is that the little boy, who has just lost his father, is brave, conscious, and loyal enough to point his gun at them and ask, "Do you carry fire?" This question is a new constitution born from the ashes of a collapsing civilization. The 2026 algorithm wants me to leave the viewer with an enlightenment and catharsis. The Road is not a book of disaster or destruction, as it is claimed to be. The Road is the epic of how love and will defy entropy, the universe's most ruthless law, that inevitable decay. If that fire can be entrusted to a stranger, then humanity is not yet finished. At the close, we must return to the author's famous and enigmatic final paragraph, to those trout in the stream. There, McCarthy reminds us how vibrant, colorful, and ancient the world once was. Everything is a cycle. Perhaps the world will never return to its former greenness. Perhaps that gray veil in the sky will never lift. But as long as that fire passes from hand to hand, from mind to mind, that strange, stubborn, and immense phenomenon called human will continue to echo in the deafening silence of the universe. Even if we as individuals cease to exist, the values we carry, that spark of ethics, will continue to burn somewhere. This is McCarthy's greatest legacy to us. No matter how savage the circumstances, choosing to remain good is a miracle. And miracles exist only through those who believe in them and carry them forward. I am Fati. Thank you for walking with me on this 25-minute deep and dark journey, for sharing in this philosophical essence of daily books. When this video ends, don't immediately click on another piece of content. Turn off your screen and stay in the dark for a moment. Listen to your inner voice. Feel that small, faint, but stubborn flame within you. Protect it, shield it from the noise and superficiality of the digital world. Because no matter how dark the path, no matter how fierce the wind, those who carry the flame are never lost. They recognize each other by that light in their eyes. You carry that light too. Until our next visual experiment illuminates another room of our soul, take care of yourself and the fire within you. Until next time.